Day of May 2015, the Ochelli Effect is live on UCY.TV radio. Those of you catching it further downstream, I do appreciate you as well, but you can catch the archives and the live show at ucy.tv/TOE. And if I'm talking too fast, I'm sorry. Anyway, it is Tuesday night, and, well, what do we do every Tuesday? But we do focus on the Liberty Beacon. Before I get to that, and before I get to the two most interesting guests I think I could possibly put together that are both affiliated with, and actually one of them being the founder of, but also affiliated with the Liberty Beacon. Before I get to that, just want to say that I do appreciate everybody who does decide to tune in, everybody who does what they do, the occasional donation that has been made. I do appreciate that as well. As a matter of fact, I want to thank Patricia for having made a donation earlier in the week. I can't remember if I thanked you on the air already. Patricia Brown-Schweller, I believe your name is pronounced. I want to thank you. You know, things are tough all over, and I do appreciate any of that comes my way. But I'm also glad for those of you who just decided to tune in, spread the word about, discuss, or say anything about the efforts that I'm making here, because generally speaking, these things are done without any sort of profit motive. There's no sort of search for fame on my part or anything like that. This is not what it's about. I'm more about the information. I know that I'm not a professional announcer. I know that I do what I do because this is the way I feel, and I have to speak the truth. I'm compelled to do so. It's actually not the most fun thing in the world to do. If I had my druthers and the world was perfect, I would probably be thrilled to not get paid to introduce records. Okay? I really would. I enjoy music. Anyway. But the world is what it is, and therefore tyranny on all levels needs to be confronted. Not only the political tyranny, which is easily seen and reported on constantly on networks just like this and many, many others throughout the interwebs, okay, and all of those things that you can get on your fondle slab of choice and use your applicable applications to tune to, which of course you can do here also. If you use the TuneIn app, you can find UCY.TV. But anyway, it is those conditions that compel us to speak about these things, and of course we're going to have a generalized discussion about some of that tonight. And God knows where it'll go in the second hour, because Barry Prince, you know, you always got to see what his mood is. Of course, he's the host of The Big Puzzle. But like I said, also affiliated with the Liberty Beacon. And the first guest I have on tonight is, of course, the founder, the main ranter, and a man that I'm very, very happy to call my friend, Roger Landry. How are you tonight, sir?
Always doing much, much better when I get a chance to talk with you, Chuck.
You say that a lot.
Well,
I
you know what? I constantly tell people, I dare you to prove anything I say is wrong. I don't challenge you. I dare you. I am one of these people who speaks the truth even to his own detriment on occasion. So if I say it often, should only emphasize even more that that's what I feel.
I smile and don't know how to respond to compliments too well. What can I say? I,
I think you
I
did good enough.
appreciate you, though. I appreciate you, and I appreciate all the work you do. Even on another radio program just the other night, we wound up discussing, people that I have respect for, and it was, kind of asked who it is that I actually respect regarding media dissemination of information, and you know that your name actually came up during that conversation, and we discussed the Liberty Beacon and everybody else who was on there, regardless of their disagreements or whatever, all to a man nodded in agreement to that and said that the Liberty Beacon is just one of those things that we know is on our side, and hey,
Yeah,
what can you say?
we're not looking for fame or fortune either. What we are looking for is as many people's ear as we can grab. Because as you so eloquently put just a few minutes ago, there is so much going on around us, whether you're talking about health issues, political issues, perpetual warfare issues, and I could go on and on. There is a myriad of issues that we need to be aware of because we live in a very unique time. And I'm not putting a good or a bad stamp on that. What I'm saying is we live in a very interesting and unique time whereby tyranny is coming from every direction simultaneously. And you can say, well, gee, the people who founded this country didn't have it all that great during the revolution, but they didn't have the health tyranny. They didn't have the social tyranny along the lines that we do. They didn't have a lot of the different aspects that we're faced with in the modern world today. And when you see a scenario such as the one we live in right now, where everything that we used to take for granted is now something that is perpetrating evil upon our bodies or our minds, you must say that the more people we can reach with the truth, then, we're in a struggle, Chuck. We need to wake people up.
Well, this is the thing: is that we do live in a remarkable time. In that, there was a time, although most of us were still being lied to back then. There was a time, for instance, we brought this up many times that you and I grew up in slightly different eras, where you were meant to understand that the authorities were there because they were out for your best interests. You were meant to understand that, of course, the medical profession, which is now the medical industry, okay, was there to make you better, was there to make you healthier, was there to advise you, was there to give you the things you needed. Well, we were meant to think that our government was there to serve us. We were not there to serve them. These were all these odd concepts that have gotten turned onto their heads, turned over their heads and onto their heads. How about that? Over time, I trip over my tongue, but I still recover.
Oh, you do quite well.
The thing is, this is the reality in which we live now, and it is difficult sometimes to get people to open their eyes. Forget about picking up their heads, forget about getting active. Just to open their eyes is sometimes a difficult thing, and I'd love to see everybody get active, open their eyes, turn their heads, and begin to move again. The way that I thought it would be when I grew up in this country. Is that there would always be individuals that would keep the greater interests and keep the money men in check, keep the government in check, that I could be part of that. But you know what? The programming has successfully reversed that process in a lot of ways. And,
But,
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 go
there
ahead.
are so many of us out there putting a word out. And you see a lot of infighting, whether it's via the mechanism of shills or trolls, or whether it's just that there are those who feel that their information is more important. One of the biggest issues we need to face in this movement, and it is in fact a movement, and it is gaining steam, is that we can be our own worst enemies. None of us is always right, and our personal opinions do taint our message to a degree. But any and all who have the testicular fortitude to stand up and challenge the system by asking the tough questions or giving the tough answers will always help move this movement in the right direction, though we may swerve off the path a little on occasion. As for those who never will admit they are wrong or believe that they are so right that they cannot further their knowledge or expand their understanding, you are in fact the harbingers of doubt who will, if possible, derail what we wish to accomplish by compromising our collective credibility. Now, that is an exact quote of something I put on a thread that you were on last night. And we were having a discussion pretty much along the lines of what we're having right now.
Yes, we were, and but this is the thing. There is hope. It is not a complete,
No,
it's not a complete end game already done.
no.
And it's going to take. And I said this many times on that broadcast last night that started that thread. I said many times that it's going to take innovation, to create a solution. And that's not
Innovation
just,
to overcome stagnation.
you got it. You got it. And that's the thing. That's where the solutions are going to come from, because if we allow things to stagnate, all we're going to end up with is that stagnant water that you end up with, sometimes on the side of your building that's been sitting in the garbage can lid way too long. And, gee, things do grow out of that are
Like
somewhat unpleasant.
maggots. Yeah. Oh, was I
Yeah.
talking about the government? Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Let's not bring Obama into this.
Oh,
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
we
I
digress.
lost control of myself. I digressed a moment. But Roger, the article that we're going to discuss tonight has a lot to do with this, though, because over time things have changed, haven't they?
They've morphed. They have morphed, but they have done it and this is a strength of those who wish to call themselves the elite. Their biggest strength is time, because they don't rush to do anything unless it is in fact the end game, which I don't believe we've reached yet. So let's consider that what we are seeing coming close to that end game, what we are seeing in its culmination, is something that has been going on for hundreds of years, and most people can't wrap their head around that. I published from a great forum yesterday the timeline of the Rothschild family, and it starts out with the Rothschilds have been in control of the world for many, many, many years. So we're not looking at a plan that was meant to be successful overnight, not meant to be successful in a year, in a decade, in a generation, or even a century. But what we're looking at now is an acceleration of this plan due to the technologies available to them, as well as what you and I have already spoken of, the acceleration of awakening across the planet. So we are forcing an increase in the tempo of what they have been perpetrating for centuries. Now, what we're going to talk about today is, and I'm not ashamed to tell people I'm 60 years old, I was born in 1954. The name of the article tonight is Three Generations of Perspective, Chuck. So how apropos, huh?
There we go.
But what we're going to talk about is what I have personally seen. And for anybody who doesn't know, I grew up in a middle-class family with 6 children born to my parents and a 7th child. For most of the time I lived in my parents' home, we had a 7th child, whether it was from an uncle or whatever. We always had a 7th child in the house. So I grew up with basically 7 children in my family, in a middle-class family. Right after high school, as a matter of fact, The day I graduated from high school, I took my graduation cap off in 1972. I flung it into the air. I handed my mother my graduation robe. I jumped in the car with my father. He took me to the airport, and I left for boot camp from my graduation ceremony.
Mm.
So from there, I went into the military. After 8 years in the military, I went to work for the military industrial complex and the DoD. And then from there, I went to work for several other corporations and large mechanisms, like one of the largest hospitals in Texas, which was in Temple, Texas, and a large sheet metal company. So I have seen a lot of different aspects. I have seen the military aspect. I have seen the healthcare aspect, having worked for a large hospital. I have seen the commercial aspect of a large sheet metal corporation. And I was in a position of management in each and every one of these jobs that I held. As a matter of fact, since I left the military, and even then, when I got out, I was basically a division manager for a sonar division on board the last ship I was on. So I have been in a position of management since I was about 20 years old. I'm 60. So I have 40 years of looking at what is going on and how do we form to it? How do we adjust to it? How can we use this to our advantage? So what I'm going to go through now, again, the name of the article is Three Generations of Perspective. And again, this is my perspective. Everything needs perspective. How did we get here? Perspective allows us to see the difference of then and now over an extended period. Something hard to see when change is slow as measured over several generations. Personal perspective also has the ability to cancel out the rewriting of history or the heavy hand of the media propaganda. I have lived for 3 generations and would now respectfully offer my personal perspective of what I have seen transpire over this time frame. This is by no means a detailed perspective that would require a book, but it is enough to make a blatant point. For those who will disagree or push back, I will simply ask, how long have you been asleep? Now, again, I was born in the middle 50s, 1954, so the first time frame we're going to discuss is mid-1950s to 1970. I can remember as a youngster, people would talk about millionaires as if they were somehow supernatural, with all the money in the world. I can still hear my father telling me that if he had $1 million in the bank, he could live comfortably off the interest for the rest of his life, never having to touch the principal.
You know, Roger, let me stop you real quick there. And I don't normally like to interrupt your articles, but you know what? That is a hell of a point.
It is
there was a time when that $1 million. Now forget about the numbers and forget about the inflation. Leave it aside for a second. I'm talking about there was a time when, and I remember this too, that was the big attainable thing. That was the, you know what? If I work hard enough, if I am a good enough person and I do the right things and I make things, and I do something different.
Oh, we're going to get to that. Yep.
But I know we're going to go there. But I wanted to interject something here, that this was not just a matter of the money for the sake of the money. This wasn't just a matter of the numbers. This was a matter of really thinking that there was going to be this resonant change in your life and you could change the lives of others. And, it's like the game show mentality that really fueled that whole industry as far as keeping people entertained for so long, right? That if you just do the right thing, if you just get lucky enough, if you just work hard enough, if you're just in the right place at the right time, the entire world could be laid at your feet.
Well, let's talk about the figures for a few seconds before I jump back in here, okay? We're talking about the early 1960s, all right? Because I was like 7, 8 years old at the beginning of. I was 6 years old in 1960, but we're talking about. I remember my father saying this in the early 60s. Let's talk about what $1 million was. If you had $1 million in the bank, And the average interest rate at that point in time was around 5%. So if you got $1 million and the interest rate is 5% per year, 10% of $1 million is $100,000. 5% of $1 million is $50,000. Back then, a school teacher was making between $3,000 and $5,000 a year and not living too bad a life. If you had $1 million in the bank and were drawing 5% interest on that $1 million, your income for the year would be $50,000 a year, or a little less than $1,000 a week. You could live in the lap of luxury without ever touching the principal. And this is what my father was saying. Now let's see how things unfold. So let me go over this last paragraph so that we can get back into the flow of this. I can still remember my father telling me that if he had $1 million in the bank, he could live comfortably off the interest for the rest of his life without ever touching the principal. Everyone who wanted a job had one. Supporting a family with one income was doable with reasonable comfort. Welfare and unemployment was still a problem of the future. Social Security was paid into a special fund that the government was not to touch, to be available as a safety net when you retired. If the government ran a deficit of tens of millions, my parents would have freaked and wondered where this country was headed. And $1 billion was a number the average citizen couldn't conceive of in its immensity. America was loved and admired across the planet. This was the place to be, to raise children, to dream. The people were proud and happy. Let's go to the next time frame. 1970 to 1990. I was in the Navy, or I enlisted in the Navy at 17 years of age. I needed my father to sign for me because, you have to be 18, but you can go in at 17 with a parent's signature. A sizable portion of this nation rails against one war, Vietnam, and forces the government to hear us. Millionaires were not that uncommon, and the term billionaire was still just creeping into our vocabulary. I can remember a local talk show radio host saying that a new millionaire was created in this country every 3 days. Wow, who would have thought? We suffered through a choreographed oil shortage that forced us to economize our vehicles and our homes. The average Joe had a good-paying manufacturing job and enjoyed a decent lifestyle. If we ran a multi-billion dollar deficit, the government said it was good for the economy. The military-industrial complex and pharmaceutical industries were beginning to buy massive influence and flexing their newfound political power. Billionaires were the new gods of money, and we were starting to realize wielded some serious political clout. This was the beginning of the me generation. The people were cautious. Next time frame, 1990. I'm not that old. 1990 to 2000. I was working for the military-industrial complex and making great money and helping to arm every nation and faction with weapons, ally or not. These companies or our government could sell them to. The term billionaire was becoming commonplace and familiar to the masses. A published article stated that a millionaire was created in this country every day, and money and material possessions ruled society. Credit was damn easy to get. And these were the decades of mass consumption. The budget was balanced for the first time in a long time, but then more and more jobs began moving overseas because labor was so cheap, and corporations began to show their true greed. Oil and cheap products were flowing into this country at an alarming rate, building a dependency that threatened our balance of trade and economic stability. The military-industrial complex and pharmaceutical industry were making serious and deep inroads into the government, acquiring serious political clout and favor, all without the average citizen having much of a clue. The people were concerned. Next time frame, 2000 to 2010. We survived the doomsday of Y2K. And I must chuckle at that because at the time I had my own little computer consulting firm that was localized with a couple of small towns in Rhode Island. And Y2K was just on everybody's mind. So here again, 2000 to 2010, we survived the doomsday event of Y2K. I was running my own little computer consulting company and scratching to make ends meet. Millionaires were commonplace and no big deal. Billionaires were plentiful and credit was cheap. The housing bubble burst intentionally and wiped out a lot of average Joes, the semi-well-to-do, and many of these common millionaires. More and more, the common folk were out of work, and getting another job meant settling for less. Big banks were failing but receiving bailouts from their political cronies, regardless of their blatant mismanagement, while we the people fell further into debt and relative poverty. The military-industrial complex was raking in billions from multiple wars that worked to their advantage. Pharmaceutical giants were now buying government favors at a rate 5 times what the military-industrial complex could muster. Multinational corporations now have a visible stranglehold on the government. Budget deficits skyrocketed as the government tried to buy their way out of a hole they had dug due to the push it back or kick the can down the road mentality combined with severe cronyism and incompetence. Nearly every politician had his hand in the cookie jar, and their time in Washington was consumed with padding their retirement instead of why they were sent there in the first place. America was now officially an oligarchy. The people are waking up. Next time frame, 2010 to present. I have now worked for 2 companies that have gone out of business because, they can no longer compete in a global economy. More than 1 out of 5 adult males is out of work, and true unemployment, not what the mainstream media reports, is over what was observed in the Great Depression, or basically, if you listen to absolutely truthful economists, right around 23%. A large portion of this demographic is either collecting long-term unemployment or some other form of benefits from a government that is broke, and many are faced with very few prospects of ever regaining their standard of living. The talk of recession turns to depression as more people exhaust their unemployment benefits or give up trying to ever find gainful employment again. The big banks and global financiers have as great a stranglehold on the economy as the military-industrial complex and pharmaceutical industry has on the government. Our national credit rating has been lowered for the first time in history, and Washington's answer to this is to borrow more money or to raise the debt ceiling to heights generations to come will be severely burdened with. Congress is impotent due to severe infighting, special deal-making, and finger-pointing. We now talk about yearly deficits using the term multiple trillions, a mind-boggling number we could not even have conceived of a mere generation before. You can't drive through any city of size without seeing factory after factory closed down and abandoned due to the failure of American competitiveness, or beggars and the homeless on most street corners panhandling just to stay alive. America, once seen as the shining castle on the hill, is now looked at as an out-of-control monster, or the proverbial bully on the block. War protests are almost non-existent, even though we are involved in hostilities across the globe, both overtly and covertly, leaving millions of dead innocents, collateral damage, in our wake. A college graduate is now competing with the out-of-work professional with 30 years of experience willing to work for peanuts. A full-time job with benefits is now seen as a gift from the Almighty. Our once globally admired middle class falters and shrinks. The person who has worked hard all his life has seen his pension destroyed by greedy, inept bankers, while the average Joe who is about to retire wonders if the Social Security fund he has paid into all his life has been so badly abused and raided by the government that it will fail him when he needs it most just to survive. I founded the Liberty Beacon Project to awaken the sleepers to the disintegration of America with the hopes and belief it's not too late. The people are angry. Next time frame, today. In a mere 3 generations, a blink of the eye by historical standards, I have personally watched the proudest, most powerful, and prosperous country in the history of this planet knocked to its knees by power-grabbing greed and gross mismanagement, and all to the benefit of a very select few. It will always, I will always be proud to be an American. But there are so many Americans today I can never be proud of. It's time to wake up, America. Now, how the hell is that for perspective?
Well, this is exactly the point which we've reached, and of course you paint a perfect picture of what's happened over 3 generations.
I was breaking up. Could you tell it in my voice? Those last couple paragraphs?
A little bit, you covered it real well, but
No, I'm talking about I was just about in tears.
no, I
This
know.
stuff shakes me to my foundation because just the experiences I can lay testament to are enough to absolutely bring me to my knees and bring sobs from me if I take the time to really reflect on them. And a lot of times I avoid doing just that.
See, and that's the thing is that your perspective, and I'm going to take a step back here, and don't take offense to this, but your perspective is not even from a bad place.
I agree with you.
You came out of a decent, seemingly decent home.
And I've had a good life.
You had a pretty good life.
Yes.
But even from your standpoint, so now let's both take a step back for a moment, and I'll interject myself into this. I didn't come out of a situation like that. That's not how I grew up, right? Think about this. There are a whole lot more people that came out of a worse situation, thinking that if they did the right things, if they moved forward, if they were progressive as far as contributing to society. You remember that old phrase that you don't hear anymore? Making your contribution to society? Remember that? That whole idea that if you were going to be a productive member of society, all those things. I mean, you've heard these terms, haven't you, Roger?
That's why I went into the Navy.
Well, there you go. That was
my contribution to this society.
That was your service, right? But the thing is that, if you came out of a harder place, if you came out of a rougher place, maybe it was to avoid getting sucked into bad things. Maybe it was to avoid, getting into, well, I don't know, let's just go blunt, gang life, getting into, dealing the illicit drugs, or being part of the problems that destroy the communities, absolutely being part of that. That wasn't even on your radar, right? But you do know that there is a significant number of the population that came from that kind of
but you must remember, when I was growing up, the middle class was the most powerful middle class this planet had ever seen. We had more people within a range of what would be considered in anywhere else in the world at the time to be a comfortable zone, a comfort zone of living. So, yes, there were poor people. There were those that were railed against. There were those that were, I remember the Civil Rights March. I remember Martin Luther King. I remember all of these things growing up. But the majority of this country was the most powerful middle class ever seen in the history of this planet.
No, no disagreement here. What I'm saying, though, is that think about this for a minute. And I'm saying this to the listener mainly, that, you know what, if you came out of a place like Roger did, and you can see how badly this has gone, imagine if you climb yourself out of one of those snake pits, okay? Imagine if you emerge from that as a walking upright, civilized human being, even, okay? Thinking that you have a chance. And meanwhile, that big, huge middle class that you wanted to join isn't there anymore. That's gone. What do you think that does? You know what I'm
I'll, t-
saying?
I'll tell you exactly what it does. It causes a lot of people to give up hope. And we push back against tyranny in this country, and we strive to wake people up. What we also need to do is we need to support all of these individuals who know the things that you and I know, and in their mind, there is no hope. Why should I try? We can never, ever win against this monolith. We need to support and educate these people. We need to tell them there is hope, because you hit the nail right on the head, Chuck. There are so many people today who despair at the true condition, not what we're being told, not the lies, not the smoke and the mirrors, the lies and the deceit, the actual conditions that prevail in this country today. So many people awaken to this, and the first thing that hits them is a wave of despair that some of them will never overcome.
Right. I'm very glad that that's exactly the direction you went into, because this is something that, keeps coming up now, is that, I find myself in conversations with people where they realize that these are the problems. They realize that that this is the big game. The giant panopticon is absolutely turned against the individual. That is the way it is. They get it. And then a lot of them shut down because they embrace hopelessness. That is not the proper response here.
But that's part of the conditioning. Part of the conditioning is that you cannot go up against this Goliath. You cannot go up against this monolithic government, and so you give into it. And I can honestly tell you, actually, I wrote a meme about this one day and put it out, and it was very, very popular. Probably one of the most popular memes I ever made up. And it basically states, when you allow a monolithic government to make up for your shortcomings, or we allow a monolithic government to make up for our shortcomings, we can never call ourselves a free people again. So to become awakened to the fact that this is happening, only to fall into the depths of disparity and give back in to this monolithic source of propaganda and tyranny, this has got to be, to me, this is the scariest thing that can happen to anybody.
Right, but what I'm here to say is this: regardless of how you see it, if you understand what's happening, if you get the giant control grid which is in place, it is not time to give in. Okay, that is exactly the wrong thing to do. That's exactly what they want you to do. Okay, that's what I'm getting at here. Okay, and sometimes people think that when we do discussions like this and we talk about these situations, that all we're about is telling you how bad things are, and that you should just accept that this is the way it is. Yes, you need to accept that that is the reality, but you don't need to accept that this is the way things need to remain.
If that was the case, you must understand that in the early 1770s, this country was occupied by what was the most awesome military force in the history of this planet at the time, and that was the King's Army and the King's Navy.
Right.
This was, and if these people had come to the mindset that we cannot push back against this monolith, we cannot possibly win against this megalith, then we would never have had a United States of America.
Exactly. That is exactly the point, and there is so much more to it. But inside the individual, okay, we can talk about these groups of people that stood up and how small they were and exactly what the point was at the time and everything else. We can do that. But remember this, that it is within the individuals that sparked these different ideas, that created different ways, that created that innovation to avoid the frustration, right? They did that. It's time for that to happen again. It's that simple. And not just here, not just on these shores, but everywhere. Okay? That's what it is. This is what we have to come to. This is why we need to come to some sort of a consensus about the freedoms that we are entitled to as human beings, not just as citizens of this particular plot of land that was fought over for this reason or whatever else, but all of us need to get to that idea and need to awake individually, okay, and spread it like a virus.
Not only do I agree with you, but now we have to interject something else into this scenario, okay?
Yes.
We have so many brainwashed and brain dead. They still make up a majority of this country, and we're looking at probably in the 70s if we talk about percentage points. When I first jumped into the liberty movement, which was a scant 3 years ago, we were probably sitting at 5 to 10%. I would say we're sitting at least 20+% at this point, maybe not too far into the 20s, but 20 something percent at this point. So we do know that there are still a lot of brain dead or propagandized individuals in this country. One of the biggest things I hear constantly from people who push back against my constant activism, whether it's about vaccines, GMOs, political tyranny, fluoride in the water, perpetual warfare. If it harms humanity, you can count on the fact that I am hollering about it on the biggest platform I can stand on with the most powerful megaphone I can grab, or the Liberty Beacon Project is. And a lot of the hollering that I do is through the mechanism of the Liberty Beacon Project. I have been told over and over again or accused over and over again of not loving my country. So I sat down last night and I wrote something about that, and it's another one of my memes, okay? And I've literally written hundreds of these. And this one reads, "Please stop telling me that because I perpetrate activism against political, military, health, economic, and social tyranny in America today, I do not love my country. As I see it, if you are willing to allow all of this and much more to destroy the true meaning of America without pushing back, it is in fact you demonstrating a lack of love for your country. And if you can't see the wisdom in this, then you are in fact not a part of the solution. You are the problem."
And you can't say it any better than that. Let's be honest. And speaking about activism and things that are going on, you know what I totally did not remember to mention last week or to ask you about was the gentleman who is making that walk. Because we talked about it on this show, and I did forget to update everybody on that.
I just did another show with him that'll go up more than likely tomorrow. We're going to be doing a weekly recording and putting it up on, I haven't decided, I think it's going to be Wednesdays, it might be Thursdays. More than likely, every Wednesday there will be a show, a 30-minute discussion with this guy. He is 5 days into his trip. It's a 4,000-mile trek all around the coastal area of the UK. It will take him 20 miles a day, 200 days straight. He's 5 days in. He's walked 100 miles. He is 63 years old. He has never been a physical individual in his life, but he believes so strongly in the mechanism of illegal drugs doing so much harm to the up-and-coming generations that this 63-year-old gentleman, who is the senior admin of the Liberty Beacon UK, our UK website, he felt enough about this that he decided, and this might have been sparked by a conversation I had with him. His name is Steve Cook. And the website you can go to watch his or to track his progress is walkingthekingdom.co.uk. What might have sparked this is I did a show with him whereby I said, there are so many of us that speak to the problems. What we need to do is find more people that are willing to perform actions to bring attention to these problems. And I'm not telling you that's what sparked him, but I sure would feel good if it did. And he'll probably never tell me because he's probably got so many influences on what pushed him, or I don't know, propagated him or whatever to do this. But he is at the 100-mile mark, and he has been doing this for 5 days. Now, a 63-year-old man cares enough about something to walk 4,000 miles. That is almost 1,000 miles more than from the East Coast to the West Coast of the United States. And he's going to do it unbroken, which means he's not going to take a week off here, 2 weeks off there. He is going to walk 20 miles every single day for 200 days straight. I get the chills talking about this. This is a gentleman who I am so proud to have within the Liberty Beacon Project. But I honestly believe had he never heard of the Liberty Beacon Project, he would be doing this anyway. This is a gentleman with sterling character who I will hold up to the world as an example.
No, absolutely, and that's why I wanted to bring up Mr. Cook's activity, because we did cover that on a show a couple of weeks ago. And somebody did ask me about it, and I wanted to make sure that we let everybody know.
You can go to the Liberty Beacon page on Facebook, and every day he puts a short video, a couple of minutes of what he's been through. And his first couple of days were not pretty, because even though he had done some practice walks, after you've gone like 2 days or 3 days straight, with basically just having a few hours of sleep, the body does tell you that, what are you? I know you're walking to protest, illegal drugs, but are you on drugs? What are you doing to me?
The body first says, okay, I'll help you out with this. And then after a little while says, hey, stop it. What are you doing?
He'll walk through that. The human body is just such a magnificent machine. Yeah. And we are machines, basically. We're biological machines, but we are machines. It will adjust itself to that tempo. It might take 10 days. It might take 15 days. But within the near future, Stephen's body will adjust. That will become the norm for it. And so it will actually get easier for him as he progresses, not harder.
No, that's exactly what's going to happen, is that the human body adjusts to various conditions and activities as you push it. They talk about the breaking through the runner's wall and things like that. The same thing happens during repeated activities of any kind, and that is part of the amazing thing.
I wouldn't want this guy to kick me after he walks 4,000 miles. I mean, he'd probably give you a love tap and knock you up over the goalpost from the 50-yard line.
Oh yeah, he's going to be strong. He's going to be strong.
Oh yeah,
and and definitely do check that out on the Facebook page if you're on the Facebook, the Federal Book, whatever it is you want to call it. You can find, if you're looking on there for information, if you look to the Liberty Beacon, and that is the Liberty Beacon. Okay.
Or Walking the Kingdom. He has his own Facebook page as well.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Okay, or Walking the Kingdom on Facebook. Either way, I know those little short videos. I know I watched the Day 4 video earlier today myself. So Day 5, I guess, will be following shortly on the posts, but you might want to check it out and see what a man does when he does these things consistently. And when you get a chance, he doesn't even know who I am, but tell him that I said personally that I'm extremely impressed and really wish him well and hope that he completes his task and feels a hell of a lot stronger when he's done, because I'm sure that'll be the result.
Well, what I see is an individual who cares so much. And you've all heard me talk about, and you've heard my one of the articles I did and one of the memes I read to the audience here about the gatekeepers of the up-and-coming generation. We are the gatekeepers. Are we failing as the gatekeepers of this up-and-coming generation? I would tell you that I would hold him up as an example, an ideal gatekeeper for the up-and-coming generation, if you are willing to put yourself through that. You can count on one hand the individuals who have walked the entire coastline of the UK. And how many of them ever did it at 63 years old? I'll tell you right now, he's performing a first.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't think anybody's actually done it at his age. As
No,
a matter of fact, I don't recall anybody actually having completed the whole thing.
I believe it has been completed several times, but individuals much younger over a longer period of time with more rest period, more in between.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. Not like this, where he's consistently going every single day. I don't think that's actually been done, has it?
To tell you the truth, I don't know. And you've actually, my God, Chuck has caught me with my pants down. Oh my God, I had to say I don't know. I think
Well,
that's the first time you've ever heard me say that, isn't it?
took me a year, but Roger, here we are.
Oh, I haven't done the research. Ouch. Ask me next week, I'll know.
Oh, I know. You know what? That'll be the first thing out of your mouth. By the way, I
Yeah.
found out there was actually this and this and this, but qualifying this and this. I know that's going to happen.
Oh, it just hit me, and my face is beet red right now, and my body temperature went up by about 5 degrees because when I have to say, and I never lie, and I never exaggerate, I will always tell you what I know to be the truth, or I will qualify it by saying I'm not sure, but this is what I think. When I say the words "I don't know," oh, this is traumatic for me.
See, I thought you'd have that. That's the thing. I'm so used to you having it, right there in your mental index that I wasn't trying to trip you up, Roger. I was
Well,
just.
I find this quite pleasant. I mean, because one of the things that I stated just a few seconds ago when I read that quote that I put in the thread, last night that we were talking about was none of us is ever right all the time. We don't have all the answers. And anybody who's ever heard me say, I'm an expert at anything, you were imagining it. You were hallucinating. Chuck will tell you, my personal motto is, I'm an expert at nothing. But I know enough about everything to have an intelligent conversation about anything. Anybody who looks you in the eye, and by that I mean says something with bravado, anybody who tells you they know everything or they are an expert on anything, there's nothing they can be taught, is a liar. And
Absolutely.
your trust will never, ever pay dividends if you invested in them.
That's absolutely true. That's why I never ever describe myself as an expert on anything, because I know there's always more to learn. Okay, and
I wake up
that's
every day hoping that I can learn something new. Wishing.
well, all you gotta. It's not hard because the world as it is. There's always something to be learned. There's always something changing, and this is the one guarantee in life is that things will change. Now, the choice for
Yeah,
everybody, of course, is exactly what kind of change is going to occur. So,
I agree.
you don't like the situation that we're in. You don't like the way the world looks right now. You
Wait a
don't like
minute,
the way
it'll
your
change.
future looks. Wait a minute, it will change, but if you don't wait a minute and you get involved and you actually try and do something, whether it's to try and speak out, whether it's to try and do something like Mr. Cook is doing, or to do what Roger Landry does, or even to have, a little radio show on a network a couple nights a week, or whatever else it is, if you do something, you might just have a way to guide that change that is a coming.
Well, I got to tell everybody listening, because again, you set me up so perfectly. I've got to tell everybody how easy it is to institute change, because everybody out there is thinking that this is such a hard thing to do. I don't know if anybody out there knows about geometric growth. Okay. The easiest thing you could possibly do. Okay. I'm not telling you to wrap yourself up in the internet every day to start a radio show or to start a group or to start a website. But if you've got a neighbor who is ignorant to the reality of life today, spend a little bit of time talking to him. Spend a little bit of time the next day talking to him. Spend it, and I'm not talking about getting to the point where he doesn't want to listen to you anymore. I'm talking about 5 minutes the first day, and then 5 minutes every day for the next month. And then the following month, 10 minutes. And then, you can make that weeks instead of months. And then the following week, make it 30 minutes, 3 or 4 times a week. If you change his mind and you can impress upon this one gentleman, okay, what is actually going on around him, it will open his eyes in such a magnitude that he will feel compelled to do the same for someone else. Now, if you take that progression, okay, you've talked to one person, he's talked to one person, which makes two people. Now, those two people each talk to one person, You watch that geometric growth over a period of about 6 months, and the number will stagger you. Change is not hard to come by. All we have to do is convince those people to get off their couch long enough to invest that time in making the change. The hardest thing is to get something moving. Once something is moving, the law of motion states that it's hard to get it to stop. So the hardest thing is to get something in motion. Once you get it started, getting it moving faster and faster is much easier. And geometric growth guarantees that if all of us just take one person under our wing, within a matter of months, we will have made a huge dent.
That's absolutely true. That's the way it works. And even if you don't think that you've made the impression that you wanted to, sometimes planting those seeds in someone's mind, they will germinate later.
Yes.
You never know, actually, what you're doing by reaching out and engaging with your fellow man, which is something that I constantly preach, that there is a need to absolutely work together, to interface with one another, to not just do it on the internet, but to actually deal with your neighbors, the people around you, in your alleged communities. Even if you're not in a community, interface with some real people now and then,
Can I say one more thing, because you're going to have to kick me off the air here real soon. I don't want to take up any of Barry's time. Barry is a very intelligent and very entertaining individual.
Absolutely he is.
Okay. You really do need, and I'm talking to everybody listening, to talk to your neighbors. You really do need it. Let me explain to you why. Okay? Because if you live in a neighborhood full of sheeple, or a neighborhood of people that are so propagandized that they have drawn back away from you, thinking that you are a tinfoil hat wearer, or you are an egocentrical maniac, let me explain what's going to happen when the crap hits the fan. If they value their comfort zone as much as they probably do, when the crap hits the fan, and these roving bands of DHS individuals start to hit the neighborhoods looking for the troublemakers, rather than be wrenched out of their comfort zone, they will give up yours in a heartbeat.
Oh, yes.
You need to know who your neighbors are, and you need to know how they think, because your future and the future of your family depends on it. And if you think I'm putting too much emphasis on this, you're an idiot.
I cannot argue with you, sir. This is the thing.
One rant in there, just one little one,
It's okay. You know what? We did have a calm show. You weren't yelling or spitting at the mic or anything, so we had to get a little something in there for you. I know.
Yes, and now I'm coughing. But anyway, let me stay on long enough just to say hello to Barry, and then I promise you I'll bow out gracefully. But he's a gentleman I don't get to chat with enough, and he's always an entertaining individual, always.
Yes, he is, and let's see now. You caught me a little ahead of schedule there. I wasn't quite ready to grab him. But
you have to bring him in now. I mean, just don't dump me right at the hour before you bring him in.
Oh, Roger, would I unceremoniously just sort of dismiss you from the air? I mean, really?
Actually, there's a first time for everything.
Well,
one of these days, I might just piss you off to the point where that's a necessity.
Well, you haven't done it yet. And
I probably never will.
probably never will, because even when I think you and I are about to argue, it usually winds up going, no, actually, this kind of works for me. And you know what? Didn't think of that. And we both do that to each other, which is really the great thing about this. And I actually did grab Barry now. So, Barry.
Where did you grab him?
Oh, listen to this. I love it. Roger always makes these jokes.
Let's go, Chuck. You got my attention.
If you start talking,
you got my attention, buddy. That worked.
If you start talking like Mickey Mouse, I swear, man, I will hang up on you.
Oh, so he's going to go the Donald Duck route. All right.
Okay. Anyway.
Say Donald Duck.
Okay, I got 1,000 of them, but I won't bring them up on your show, Chuck. I've never exposed my voices on the air before, but I have 5 or 6 of them. I can do pretty good.
Mary,
but I'll keep my normal voice because I wanted to say hi to Roger. I'll stop babbling for a sec. How you doing, Roger? I'm pretty wound up today. You can probably tell that already.
I can tell, and I just wanted to stick around long enough to say hello. I wish I could stay on and listen to your entire show, but everybody knows, because I say it every time just about now, I've got so much to do. I don't even know if I'm asleep tonight, so I need to get back to work. Chuck, this is always an enjoyable scenario for me. I get to vent a little bit. I get to talk to a great friend, and I get to learn a little bit. And you are, believe it or not, a great influence on me when it comes to that.
Well, I do appreciate that, Roger. And, of course, I advise and exhort anybody who's listening to the sound of my voice, you've got to go over to The Liberty Beacon, all one word, by the way, thelibertybeacon.com. See the amazing array of stuff that Roger has put together, and also the many individuals who contribute to it. When you see TLB staff, believe it is a cooperative effort.
Yes.
There are a lot of individuals actually that contribute and do a lot of things, but of course Roger is the founder and the main voice that I always hear. Even when I'm reading an article over there, it's hysterical because we referenced articles and last night during a show and I said, you know what, I haven't read it yet, but I can picture it in Roger's voice and and you know what, simply because it's on the Liberty Beacon, I would say it's worth a look right away. After that, though, I say to everybody about every source, always examine it for yourselves. And Roger is one of these people who is more than happy to hear, you know what, you got something wrong. Please tell Roger when he's wrong.
Yes.
If you can find it. And tell him when he's wrong, tell him why he's wrong, and I'll tell you what will happen.
Don't just tell me I'm wrong. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Tell him why he's wrong, right. Like, back it up. Yep. Always back it up. But if you bring the back up and you show him the facts, you know what? This is the kind of man who, no matter what it is that you brought to him, if you have the proof, he will adjust and tell you, you know what? Thank you.
Yes.
So that is the deal. And so I do say, everybody, go over to thelibertybeacon.com. Check it out. Also, The Falling Darkness. There are many websites, Middle East Rising, a whole lot of stuff going on over there, but you can find it all starting at thelibertybeacon.com. Roger, it is always a privilege, and I do appreciate your time, and the fact that you're on with me every Tuesday makes some broadcasters envious of me for some reason.
I don't know why.
But there we are. I do appreciate it, and we are going to enjoy our time with Barry Prince, which I have no clue what's going to happen now. People,
that's probably the best part of it all.
That's the thing. Barry and I get started. Who the hell knows where it's going to go? But
all right, Chuck, Barry, you guys have a great show, and I will talk to you again soon, Chuck.
Yes, you will. Actually,
yeah, Roger.
I want to talk to you off the air sometime in the next couple days when you have time. So, but we'll do that.
Yeah, me too, Roger.
Okay, guys, you got it.
Everybody wants a piece of Roger.
Yeah. Have a great day, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye. So, like I said, Roger Landry, a definitely unique individual who is absolutely bringing together a whole lot of interesting people, including myself and my next guest, Barry Prince. You and I met basically through the Liberty Beacon Project. We definitely are two different kinds of guys, but we seem to agree on a lot of things as well. And tonight, I'm going to shut up and mute up for a second and just say, Barry, you keep telling me you got a lot on your mind, you got a lot you want to say. Guess what? You're on, brother. Whatever it is, go for it.
Well, listen, Chuck, I'm not good at going solo too long, but first off, I'm going to say a couple things about my friend Roger there before he gets too far away. Is that, in the time that I've known Roger, Charles, he has put incredible information in front of me, and anything you guys want to learn about anything, I challenge you to go to Liberty Beacon, look at his links, look at his information, and then try and find some lies or deep bulk in it. I've done that. I've looked at thousands of things that Roger's put into my face. I've studied the links, and I've never yet been able to debunk any information that he's put out. I want to applaud him, Charles, for what he does. He's an incredible force right now against what we see happening in our planet. And I sense the urgency in his voice. I sense that urgency with everybody I'm talking to right now on the alternative media. I had the pleasure of being on a Canadian station the other night, and some of the conversations that went on there, I didn't really expect to hear out of Canadian viewers, but they are very, very aware of what's going on in the United States and America right now, because, of course, what happens down there, Charles, is going to directly come to our doorsteps the next couple of days. There isn't going to be a border between us and you guys. We're tied to the hip. So, of course, what happens down there is of great concern to a lot of Canadians right now. We see Operation Maple Ridge now being announced by our government, very, very similar military operation and build-up of military equipment in Lethbridge, Alberta, and a couple other military bases in northern Alberta right now that are starting to get people's attention. That's on the internet. If folks want to have a look at that, it's called Operation Maple Ridge. Right up the same scenario as what we see happening with Jade Helm. We see similar operations being announced and put into effect all over the world right now, Charles, for this. It's one of the biggest box of Pandora's box of questions I've ever had. I've really spent a lot of time looking at all the supporting factors with Jade Helm, exactly what's going on, what could possibly be at their disposal, what they have built up, the toys and things that at their disposal that they could possibly unleash on the American people. How this is being set up, Charles, biggest red flag I've ever seen in my life, buddy. And if Americans aren't waking up to this right now in mass, then they have to have their heads so far in the sand that they'll never see what's going on around them. This is incredible developments, buddy, and it's coming at light speeds. Like Roger said earlier, I have a hard time following Roger because, I never do studying for shows or anything like that. I just go by the seat of my pants, Charles, but I've been doing a ton of studying on this, buddy, and this is an incredible red flag. What do you think?
Well, I think a lot of things about this, and I am rather undecided as to what's going on here because I have a suspicious mind. First thing, by the way, do me a little favor, try and lean in a little more to the mic, Barry, because I'm having listeners tell me that you're a little hard to hear.
Okay, hang on. I'll adjust my microphone level for you. How's that? Is that a little better?
That just makes the background noise louder, actually. So.
Okay, let me bring it down. How's that?
There, I think you sound better like that. Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
I just want to make sure people hear what you have to say. But, when it comes to this whole thing with Jade Helm, I have a problem. See, I see everybody panicking about it, but I'm not sure that they understand the context, which is that, first of all, military and other intelligence train on civilian populations constantly. Okay, this is not really all that unique, except that it seems to be on a larger scale. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that this isn't worrisome, not at all. That's not where I'm at with it. It's extremely dangerous to have this stuff going on, and I'm not saying I approve of the way it was done in the past. Mm-hmm. This is all, this is all worrisome in a way, but I'm not going to be struck by fear here on this, and I'm not going to feel as though this is the end game. I'm sorry, I don't think that it's time for that just yet, from a strategic standpoint. But that being said, okay, I think that the truth about what's really going on regarding the Jade Helm situation has yet to be revealed. Actually, it could be a hell of a lot worse than what most of us are even contemplating. But the deal is, I think that the real operation is being hidden by these publicly leaked facts about this. So, here I am in the sort of rhetorical argument with myself over it.
Okay.
Right.
You know what, Charles? Listen, buddy. I really, if I come across as a fearmonger right now, I apologize. But I'm not going to apologize, Chuck, because my feelings is that it's just not what's going on with Jade Helm. It's everything else that's being revealed lately on the internet and through the alternatives, and how it all supports what could possibly go on with Jade Helm, how it all ties together. One of the things that we have to bring to people's attention is the UN Small Treaty, UN Small Arms Treaty. The U.S. Congress is going to try and ratify this on the 27th of July. That's 12 days into the operation. The thing that disturbs me about this the most, Charles, is the buildup of military, the fact that they're calling this an exercise to train for operations against troops or factions overseas, yet they're training on American soil in unprecedented numbers. We know, Charles, that they have huge underground cities built in America. We know that they have connecting highways going for miles underground. We don't know how far. Nobody knows exactly how far, but it has been documented. It can't be debunked. This has all been done with the American taxpayers' dollars over the last 12 or 14 years. It's been filtered out of the American society. Now, who's to say what they built up in these things, Charles? I mean, if you were going to watch an operation, these are the questions that really, really kind of, I've looked at all this information and I go, well, this is being set up so well that if they wanted to unleash martial law, that who's to say what they have underground right now waiting to go? Who's to say they haven't brought in troops, Charles, under the darkness of night and stored them underground? These things are set up with cities, with air conditioning, with water filtration systems. We're dealing with very, very demonic people, and if they do launch an attack against the American people, they're going to do it in such a way that it's going to be overwhelming. That even though we think we're preparing against what we see on the ground, what's to say what's in store? These are things that I've really looked at hard, and I take them all into consideration. The timing just seems to be perfect, Charles, but I don't want to come across as a fearmonger. It's just my thoughts, buddy. It's how I see it right now. The fact that we have trains now being disclosed with shackles in them. Well, why are there trains in America with shackles? What are they setting up for right now? They're doing things that's never been done in American soil and history, ever. And we see all the pushback now coming from citizens groups, man. I mean, we go to these meetings and they're not even allowed to really ask hardcore questions or make their feelings felt. They're shut off. We see an incredible attack on free speech right now, Charles. It's in our faces. And they seem to be ramping it up at light speed. It's just what I'm seeing, buddy. I'll stop babbling for a few minutes, but it's what I'm seeing, my friend.
No, I can see.
Just my thoughts. I'm bouncing them off you, and that's what we do, Charles. We do that good. So I'm bouncing my thoughts off you.
No, and that's fine. I understand that. But the thing is that I don't think it's time to be alarmed. I think it's time to be aware. And you're absolutely right. This has gone on for a very long time. It's not the first time that foreign troops have been trained on American soil. The Canadians will follow suit with the Americans. You're absolutely seeing that same kind of thing being floated up there. This makes a lot of sense. All I'm saying is that for those that think that this is the horn that is going to sound the death knell for all of us, and we're all going to be herded into FEMA camps and all this kind of stuff, I say calm down a moment. This is an incremental operation, and what we're seeing, of course, this doesn't even begin until the summer, allegedly, right? I gotta start using the word allegedly over and over again, don't I? Because all of these things, really, I mean, what have we learned over the years? That when they float these things out there, when these things are allowed to be sort of germinated out among any media, what happens? Usually it's the distraction for the real program, So, again, the real program may be much worse than the fearmongers are telling us. And I'm not calling you a fearmonger, Barry. I'm just saying that it's debatable what this really means. That's all I'm saying.
I agree, and I'm open. I want to debate it, Charles, because I think it's a very, very pressing issue. I'm just when I take all the things that are happening and put them into context, they all seem to be building towards a very specific time here, where all these operations are going to be in operation. And I'm just saying, just take a real hard look at it, folks, and figure it out for yourself. Because I am having a few other thoughts about it, Charles, but to me, it just doesn't feel right. It just, too many things seem to be coming together at once. And like I said, if they did want to bring down the hammer on the American people, all they'd have to do right now, Charles, is collapse the dollar. And you would see a complete collapse in society. That's one of the mechanisms that we know they have at their disposal. We know that the whole dollar system could collapse literally with a pinprick right now. And you could see a worldwide collapse of all economies. They're all teetering right now. There isn't an economy in the world that's doing well. Well, how long has this been set up for? And what point in history have they brought it to use? A lot of things I think about, Charles. I don't know, but I hope you're right. I hope that this is an exercise and everything just continues on the way it is. But it seems to be very, very large scale. It seems to have a lot of questions unanswered, and more questions seem to be coming up every day. So,
yeah,
I don't know. I hope you're right, Charles. I really do. I hope you're right.
See,
I don't want to see the poop hit the fan.
No, I understand. I'm not even saying that this is simply an operation. This could be part of a much larger agenda. I don't put anything past, those who are in charge of these kinds of things, and I definitely don't ever trust anything that's been disseminated about any of the intelligence agencies, because over and over again, we always learn that there is, they're showing you 3 cards, they got 2 more up their sleeve. I mean, that's the way it goes. Or they show you something that's already, a fait accompli. There is no point to arguing about it anymore, right? Because they've already had it in place for 2 decades, and we're just learning about it now. I mean, how many times have we seen this? So the thing is that when you put it in context, though, with the fact that there is literal civil unrest in certain cities, certain sectors of this country right now, mainly over the police brutality situation, and this is going on in conjunction with it, it is a hell of a mosaic. Again, to paint that picture, I just wonder if this is being done, though, to cause a reaction, just to simply gauge what the reaction is. We know that these kind of false things have been floated before, and this is part of the game as well, right? So I keep all of my options open on the suspect radar. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying, Charles. And I agree with a lot of things you're saying, but it just this one just has got a bad feeling it to me. A lot of people feel the same thing, that this seems to be a little bit more than a military operation, and if they were setting America up to pull something big, this would be the perfect situation for it, with this much military in sight, this much military in place. It is kind of a scary scenario when you look at exactly the implications of what could go down. That's all. I'm looking at it. I want to be positive about it, Charles. I hope that we don't see the poop hit the fan, because if we do, it's not a time that I wish on anybody. But it seems there's a lot of supporting factors to that. It could be something more than just a military operation. That's all. We're hearing it from a lot of American public now. I've been listening to a lot of the meetings where the representatives of the Army in there. I've listened to about 15 or 20 of them here in the last couple of days, and every American citizen in Texas now is saying the same thing on camera, that they believe that this is really more than a military operation, and what they're seeing is a perfect setup for martial law. Well, I don't want to say it's going to happen, Charles. I don't want to be the one saying, hey, I'm not saying to your listeners I'm right at all. I'm just sharing what I really feel inside of me right now and what I'm seeing. It's just too much coincidence involved here, buddy, in my mind.
No, right, and I consider that exactly the same point. I'm not saying that it's wrong. What I'm saying is that it's when the listener in the chat room turns around and says, I'm wondering how much of the civil unrest is actually organic and how much of it is being provoked, and listener goes under the name listener. Yeah, I've been wondering that, long before Ferguson lit off. If this is exactly what's going to happen, because you knew very well that during that time, and the reason why the mainstream focused on it so much was to ratchet up, sentiment among the public that this is a necessary thing that needs to happen because of the racism and all of this kind of thing. And meanwhile, I don't think that that's the larger issue. I think that what they're doing is they're doing some test runs on a limited population, like they always do, like they did with Tuskegee, to try and figure out exactly what's going to go on with this and that, like they did with the nuclear soldiers, so on and so forth. This is what goes on, okay? And they do the same thing with media. They do the same thing with these, press releases and things like that. And I find it suspect where some of this stuff came from. Okay, so what I'm saying is that, again, we could be faced with something much larger, that they're running a little dry run for us right now to see exactly, because, for us to get wind of this so early because, we're talking about something that's going to happen a couple of months from now. This means that it has time to sort of germinate among the people. It has time to sort of settle in, you know what I mean? And this is where the danger is also. We have to not only be vigilant and make sure we're on guard for what they're going to pull, but we also got to make sure that they're not pulling our strings too, to provoke, to create the scenario, to make sure that they actually create the problem, so that they create the reaction, so that they can give us the solution. You know what I mean? This is the thing, is that people forget that often, the problem is introduced for that purpose to begin with, and this could be nothing but a psyop, bottom line. Am I saying that's how I feel? But I'm not saying that I'm committed to that argument. I'm just saying that that is a consideration we need to have. And if that is the case, then that means that there is a much larger operation on the Hill, which means that eventually this could all turn around, and you could be exactly right, but it's not really coming from this thing that we know about. It's coming from the other hand we're not watching while the magician makes the coin disappear. Okay? But again, this is the kind of thing that you and I both do, is we sort of roll through these things and try to sort them out intellectually and emotionally while we're examining them. And that's what I'm doing with you. So remember, I'm not opposing what you're saying. It's just that when you see this and then you put it in context with what's going on north of the border, you put it in context with the civil unrest stuff, you put it in context with the fact that they don't want us seeing exactly what's going on in the Middle East right now, because where's that coverage? That's not as big right at the moment, is it? Well, right after the fall of Yemen, right after the alleged, taking of all these territories by the alleged ISIS, right? I'm going to get tired of saying alleged real soon. But while this is all going on, allegedly.
Meanwhile, back on the ranch.
So is this.
The masters of distraction. The masters of distraction, Charles.
There you go. The weapons of mass destruction are in full effect.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
So,
and interesting thoughts, Charles. And maybe you're right. But you know what? I see them ramping up the public, and I feel that they want this reaction from the public. They want civil unrest. They want to see a division put into the public right now, and they're ramping up their race agenda. We see what just happened down in Texas with these guys going into that mosque. We see all kinds of things that are pointing towards racial unrest, and that's a weapon they want to use against us, because, of course, if they divide society, we're too busy fighting amongst ourselves to see what's really going on around us. I see that happening and ramping up a lot. I see that Utah now is trying to take guns away from their vets. And I see the expansion of this alleged military operation from, 8 states to now to 11 or 12, and it seems like that's ramping up. I'm going to watch it very closely, Charles. I am not saying that this is going to happen the way that I feel it might happen. I'm just saying that people really, really have to pay attention to what's going on behind the scenes and watch the developments over the next couple of months. I feel that if enough people raise their voices, that it can still be stopped. And that would be the ideal situation, Charles. Whether that'll happen, that remains to be seen. But I'm just saying, people, you really got to take a look at this. I've done quite a bit of looking into it, Charles. And if I get passionate about something, I don't mean to be that way. I don't mean to sound overpowering. And this is the way it's going to come down. It's just there's too many things that are going on behind the scenes that are all coming together at this particular time when this operation is going on. And it stinks to high heaven to me, buddy. And I hope that you're right. I really do. I hope that this is just a test.
Well, you know what?
It seems a little bit bigger than that, my friend. That's all to me.
No, and I appreciate what you're saying. That's for sure. I'm, again, not arguing with you, just saying that this is how I'm coming down on it so far. I could be very, very wrong. I hope I'm not. I hope that there is still time to deal with what is coming down the pike here because, again, see, you make the perfect point. Is that with this going on in front of us, what could potentially be happening behind the curtain? Okay, this is the thing that'll keep me awake at night. Is not this alleged operation, not this alleged test or whatever it is you want to call it. No. What worries me is what's behind it. Always, right? So But let's take a look at what it's supposed to be, right? I looked at the general meanings of this without the impassioned pleas and everything else, and I took a look at what it's supposed to be. And the fact that that is acceptable even is a problem. The fact that we have been using our various assets, in intelligence fields and allowing them to train on American soil is a problem, while being, integrated into foreign forces and allowing foreign intelligence agents to train on our own soil, which we've caught them doing over and over again. Why are they being allowed to do that among civilian populations? Mm-hmm. That's already a reality. If you live in proximity to any of these places, you know it. The communities that surround them are aware of it. And it's absolutely ridiculous that this is permissible. This should not be.
Exactly, Chuck. If you wanted to condition society to accepting these kind of things, you'd do it incrementally.
And that's what's been done.
Exactly. That's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing an acceleration of it, though. That's all. Go ahead. I'll let you talk for a minute, and I'll share a thought with you.
No, it's just that the acceleration of it has been going on, and I point this out to everybody when they were worried about the surveillance state on its way. It was already here. Nobody heeded those warnings either. When the panopticon of electronic surveillance all landed with the NSA, there was a few of us not very surprised. It's like Snowden is telling us stuff we already knew. Why is this a big deal? We knew that when they were introducing all these backdoors into telecommunications and everything else and turning it all wireless and making things so much more controllable so that somebody couldn't, from a mechanical perspective, create an independent line of any sort, because it all had to travel in this accessible way. Mm-hmm. When it came to communications, nobody bothered to notice that might be a problem. So the streamlining of this stuff is always the worry. So they have the intelligence already. I mean, anybody that has the faintest concept that they have any sort of privacy is out of their minds, because between the civilians who have cooperated with creating this interlocking, interchangeable grid of surveillance and the government agencies absolutely occupied with the same thing, and also, of course, everything private is accessible by the government. So, everything from your 7-Eleven, surveillance cams to your Walmarts, to the drones, to the street lights, to everything. I mean, if you think you can escape the grid, good luck. Yeah. Realistically, unless you're going to live isolated without a single electrical appliance anywhere near you, you're done. You're being surveilled. Mm-hmm. End of story.
And they're taking this all the time. So they're making it tougher and tougher. And we've got to talk about, we haven't even talked about Walmarts or the Target shutting down and what those stores actually going to be turned into very quickly. It all seems kind of weird to me, Charles. It really does.
Well,
why all of a sudden these Walmarts shutting down? I mean, they're all telling us the same story. I don't buy it at all.
Well, how about this, too, is that in the towns where Walmarts have absolutely devastated the local economy, there's plenty of interesting facilities that are perfectly open and nobody's bothering to rent that could be occupied as well. They got strip malls all over this country, not to mention supply houses and all kinds of other things that have been put out of business. So the infrastructure is actually coming together rather nicely.
Yeah. Well, yeah, of course. It's like Roger said in the hour before. I mean, you can't drive through an American city now and see empty factories everywhere. Oh, come on, Charles. No, let me think now. If we're going to do something bad, we better have facilities. Well, they've stuck the economy of the United States in such a position now. They got facilities all over the place and more closing every day. Look at what's going on with all the businesses in the States right now, man. It's on free fall, Charles. I was listening to the report the other day. I won't even get into that, but it is shocking what's going on with the economy, and it is in a spiral. It's incredible. But we won't get into that issue tonight. Keep on this one.
No, also...
But it's all tied together. It's all tied together.
But that's the thing. It works wonderfully in concert with this whole concept, right? They don't actually need the FEMA camps that we see because there's plenty of empty structures that can be repurposed, and... Walmart
Target stores only have an In-N-Out, man.
and Walmart cooperating with the government. Well, gee, that's an amazing thought, isn't it? So
Oh, yeah. Who owns the government? The banksters. Who owns the Target? The banksters. Duh.
yeah, well, yeah. There you go. And either way, the devastation of the American economy is something that's just, it's a footnote at this point because where are we at? Despite they tell us that things are getting better, despite they tell us that the unemployment rate has fallen off, despite the fact that those numbers are completely manipulated and fictitious from head to toe, gee, the economy's getting better, the economy's getting better. I'd like to know where, because I don't see it.
People get tired of this bull, Charles. They are. I mean, it's just the American public now. I see a mass awakening, and I just hope that it comes at light speed right now, because there is incredible things going on in America right now that, I know when I started going down the rabbit holes, Charles, about 7 years ago, I knew that one day that all this stuff was going to come down, that we're setting us up with 9/11, all the activities ever since that point in history, what that's done to our world. Everything since that point has been an acceleration point, and I see us getting to a pinnacle right now. And it'd be so easy to put us over the edge, Charles. That's all I want people to be aware of. It's just not this Jade Helm issue. It's biological problems. We see an outright of infestation of chickens right now. All through 14, 15 states are in a state of emergency. I forget what the numbers of chickens have been killed. We see all kinds of things that they could use against us, Charles. I just want people to be aware of it, that they have so many weapons they could turn on us if they wanted to turn society upside down. And it just seems a lot of things are accelerating right now. But I'm sitting back and I'm kind of baffled and going, wow. But when you kind of look at the big picture, if they were planning something, it would all fit together very nicely right now. That's all I'm saying, buddy.
Oh, no, this is absolutely true, and I can't argue with you there at all. But I think people forget about this stuff, though. When it comes down to the devastated economy has created a condition, from which the population, listen, if we had a well-fed and well-heeled population at this point, we would not be looking at the same scenario we are. If we had any economy to speak of that had any sort of growth to speak of, we would not be looking at this situation now. If we didn't have the greater corporate interests basically devastating anything resembling, private small business in this country, we would not have the situation we have now. This is the thing. We can look back and we can see exactly how this was done, okay? But going forward into the future, this is the trouble, is trying to stop a rock slide is not the easiest thing in the world. And it is all going downhill. Is there hope? Yes. But, it's going to take a lot of bodies to be able to form a fence to stop those rocks from sliding.
I agree, Charles.
And that's the point about unification and trying to come together and trying to come to some sort of consensus. And I know I'm running my mouth again and repeating the same thing again. But you know what? You got to work with other people. You've got to talk to your neighbors. You've got to not be a hermit. This is not going to work. I mean, look, if you want to sit back and watch the world burn, that's fine. But eventually the flames are going to reach your hermitage. Okay? So you may want to consider that, even if you have a different point of view, even if you're just trying to educate one person at a time in your own community, even if you're speaking out and you have a radio show and there's only 2 listeners, it really doesn't matter. Keep trying to speak out, keep trying to change the mentality, because if we change the mentality enough, it just might cause that friction, that stop of that rock slide if we have a large enough fence, okay? Yeah. That's the deal.
That's the deal. But Charles, I'm the same age as Roger. Actually, Roger is 14 days younger than I am. And, when he was talking the hour prior, everything that he was talking about hit home with me, because I've seen the exact same thing that he's seen. And, a lot of my people that are listening to are a lot younger people, and they haven't seen the changes like Roger has, or I have, or somebody, even in your age group, where you've seen monumental changes in society. What people really have to sit back and look at is history and what has happened in society before. If people sat down and took a couple hours of research and studied the Third Reich prior to the Second World War, you'd have a hard time discerning between what's happening in America right now and what happened in Nazi Germany for the 5 or 6 years prior to the Second World War. It's the exact same scenario. I urge people, Charles, to study history because history right now is the most important thing that you can study. People get history has been taken away from us in the schools, Charles, and they've done that for a reason. They don't want to know. They don't want people to know what history was. It's not something that is promoted now, even in school agendas. It's being taken away from people. I say study history because history seems to be repeating itself very, very nicely.
Well, there you go. I mean, look, it's just like with any sort of team sport. Okay, if you study the playbook and the playbook works, there's no reason to change it, and that is exactly what has gone on for a very long time. Okay,
exactly. They tweaked it, Charles.
Well, look, they
got the bugs out.
They got to step up because technology changes it a little bit, but they just adjust to the technology. They just adjust to the larger number of players or the larger number of fans in the stand. You know what I mean? That's what they do. This is the way it is, and that's why I said, and I was so horrendously depressed over the fact that 50 years after the riots that we saw, 50 years after civil unrest in the streets over the Vietnam War, 50 years, take a look at 1965 and find out what happened, right? The assassination of Malcolm X, etc. Okay. Take a look at that. 50 years later, why are we still facing the same problem in the streets? Why is that still happening? Because nobody ever solved it. They kind of quelled it by quieting it down. That's all that happened here. Okay, and I am sickened by that. That means that my entire lifetime there has been no actual progress, but it is a time in which we do have the capability to change it, I believe.
Yeah, I agree, Charles, because we have this incredible thing called the internet. And, what you said earlier, it is a time for people to become active. Try and talk to people every time you get a chance. I try and share thoughts with people a lot in my community, and it does have an effect on people. I've seen it in my community, Charles. Lots of people 2-3 years ago were calling me a tinfoil hat nut. I got all kinds of rebuttal when I first started talking to people about what I really saw. But now those same people are going, wow, I send them to Blinks on Jane Hellman. I let people look at it for themselves, and the whole situation that we seem to be seeing right now is just an incredible acceleration. Now, maybe that is just to test us. Maybe, like you said, it's problem, reaction, solution. This may be a big, big test. But I really hope you're right on that, Charles. It just doesn't feel right with me. And like I said earlier, I just want people to look at it and really study it hard themselves. And there is time to stop this. We still live in a country right now that if Americans rise in voice, I'm talking millions of Americans rise in voice, and it be heard by government, they'll be forced to either push the button or back down. One of the two, Charles. And that's what I'm hoping happens in America. I hope by talking to one person today, I don't expect people to agree with everything I say. I never expect that. But I hope that maybe something I said might make a little sense to somebody, and somebody might look into it a little deeper today. That's my hopes every day. And I asked you for time last week because it's a great concern to me, buddy. And thanks for having me on tonight again.
No, I do appreciate it. We have more time, absolutely, and I know that I did cut into you a little bit, and I'm sorry about that. But
But the thing, here, Charles. I love it.
that's what I like to do with you, though, Barry. Is that whether we're on the air or not, I like to go back and forth a little bit because you know what? It causes me to reconsider my position when I hear somebody like you who is also well thought out, who has also examined these things from a slightly different angle. That's the beauty of it, is that we can have this discussion and kind of thresh it out and be able to, maybe come to some sort of a consensus on what the actual reality is, despite the wool that's been pulled over the eyes of most of the public. And this is why we do what we do, is to try and reveal these things a little ahead of schedule, obviously, so that we can, get in front of the problems which are on the way.
Exactly.
So
we got to nip it at the bud, Charles. And if it is a major problem, like a lot of us do believe it is, it's time to nip it at the bud, or it might just get out of hand, Charles. It might. And I don't want to ever see that. I don't want to ever see what could happen if America goes into a state of martial law. So, like I said, Charles, if I'm right about my timing, so be it. I hope to God I am. But there's just something about this that it seems to be a lot bigger and they're letting, even the generals in the army don't really know what's really going on with this. They're just following orders, Charles. And this is being kept so hush-hush. Just so many things going on with it, and I'm just telling people to kind of really keep an eye on it. And if you start to feel the way I'm feeling right now in the next couple, 3 weeks, well, it's time to get off your butts and get active. So if it does go hot, Charles, then the door will close. That's all I'm saying, buddy. And I don't want to ever see that happen to anybody in my lifetime. But I don't want to see the door closed. You know how many powers they've got with the executive orders of what's been put in by Obama, Charles. You know that they're trying to create civil unrest. They're trying to create a situation where they can declare martial law. Because then, boom, overnight, all your freedoms are gone and the door closes. That's how close we could be right now to the precipice. I just want people to be aware of that, Charles. That's all.
No, absolutely, and I agree with you that awareness is never a mistake. Being vigilant is never a mistake. Being, informed is never a mistake. And here's the thing: I leave the options open, in my mind as to what this actually means, and I hope, maybe it's just me trying to be an optimist here, about what's happening, but it just doesn't feel like this is actually the closing move, as it were. It's not the finishing move, that some people seem to think that it is. Even if it is absolutely the worst of the worst, it can't be the closing, motion here. It's not it, And I still say that it's going to take some serious innovation on the parts of all of us to make it something other than that, that final confrontation that all of us, I think, have pictured at one time or another.
I agree. I mean, the last thing I want to see is a civil war in the United States of America, Charles, but it seems like they are pushing the American public in that direction, and people have to be aware of the mechanisms they're using against them, and to be aware of any kind of a false flag attack comes on American soil, just to be prepared in your own mind, to be aware of all possibilities. None of us are right in our thoughts, 100% right. And that's why I love being on here with you, because, like I said, I'm not 100% right ever in my thoughts, but I'm taking a lot of this into consideration, and it seems to be a lot of things supporting each other, that's all. And people just have to go look at it, spend a couple hours, and look at all the information behind it, and come up with your own opinion about it. And if it's alarming, then get active. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely. I mean, taking action of all sorts is going to be necessary here. So that's the bottom line, and be prepared within yourself, for what is coming.
Get to know your neighbor, Charles.
What's that?
Get to know your neighbors, folks.
See, and
they might be your best friends.
now you're repeating what I was saying, which is
okay. Sorry. I didn't mean to, but
it's okay. Go
ahead.
So
true. It's
Listen,
so true.
The thing is, you're not trying to, but you are. The thing is that yes, we need to, but see, that's the thing, is that the individual is not going to win this out. It's that simple. So that single voice or that single, messiah leader that you think might be out there that's going to give you the guidance on this, no, doesn't work that way.
But all of a sudden, Charles, if all your elected representatives started getting thousands and thousands of phone calls and emails, people lined up outside their offices and demanding that they listen to the people that elected them and are paying their salaries and follow the Constitution of the United States of America, you would see this being stopped. But I feel at this point that's what it's going to take.
I'm thinking that might slow it down, honestly, Barry, because at this point, these selected politicians, not elected, I said selected politicians that we're dealing with at this point are absolutely in the pockets of the money men. And unless you are a money man, you ain't going to get it. Plus the fact is that a whole lot of them, that have, dual loyalties, dual citizenship, with the state of Israel, this is not boding well for the interests of the American public, okay? The divided loyalties are not helping anybody. And you know what? Their loyalties are only seemingly divided by the amounts of dollar bills that can be stacked into their accounts, I guess, regardless of what the meaning of that actually is. So,
Well, the good news, Charles, the good news is Hillary will be your next president. She'll fix it all.
Oh, sure. And I got into a weird argument earlier today where I said no, Hillary is not going to be the next puppet in chief. I don't believe. I think we're looking at a continuation of the Bush dynasty. I think that's how that play might go. Okay, so there's my prediction.
That's already been decided. So
I do believe it's been decided already. I'm just not in on those chats. I don't have the ear on those myself, but I'm getting this feeling that we're looking at President Jeb. Did I just say that? Yeah, I did. President Jeb. Okay.
Man, I hope not. I really do, but if it happens, so boy.
It almost doesn't matter because a guy who's seemingly different, obviously from W. I mean, a guy who's definitely a lot slicker and can read his teleprompter a lot better and can actually read a lot better. We got this time with Obama for 8 years as opposed to W previous. But notice the policies continue, the wars continue, the great pharmacological industrial complex continues to move forward. The anti-gun stuff moves forward. The perpetual warfare moves forward. The social programming moves forward without even a hiccup from the alleged change, right? So, really, it's a laughable concept to think that something's going to change if we get a new meat puppet in chief. Okay? So, forget.
Well, the only way it'll ever change in America, Charles, is if you actually get a constitutional president, and that guy would be shot, of course. We know that. It would take a monumental change in society to stop what's going on. It would. Hey, one of the things, if there's anybody out there in Canada listening, you've really got to take a good look at what's going on with the Libertarian Party in Canada, Charles. Actually, I would love to have Tim Mullen, the leader of the Libertarian Party, on for an interview with you. Incredible concepts, incredible platform where he is. I'm only going to take a minute on this, Charles. Just give me 1 minute on this. This gentleman was the fire chief in a northern Alberta town. He, at 27 years old, is one of the youngest fire chiefs in Canada. He got the position at 24, Charles. He just resigned his position as fire chief of this town. The reason being is that the Libertarian Party in Canada is exploding, and that there has been some people with very, very strong financial ties all of a sudden get behind the party. And Tim now is resigned his position, has gone full-time. We now have candidates in just about every riding in Canada, and we're watching the numbers grow on the party exponentially. It has a platform. The one main thing, I'm going to just mention this one thing about this party that's completely different than any other political party in Canadian history, Charles, is our mandate of the party. I'm a member of the party. I support what they're doing. Our mandate is that anybody that becomes an elected MP for the Libertarian Party of Canada will have a salary not exceeding $48,000 per year. Their pensions will fall in line with exactly what the rest of Canadians get as a pension plan. No more of this $150,000 a year for an MP. No more $120,000 a year pension after 8 years of public service for the rest of your life. People that are getting involved in this party, Charles, are doing it because they are fighting for our future. So, guys, just go take a look at it. I am totally supporting the party. I've had 3 other candidates on in interviews, and it is just really grabbing people's attention, Charles. That's all I'm going to say about it. Thanks for letting me plug that.
No, not a problem at all. In fact, if one of those candidates wants to come on and come on to my show, even though I'm not a Canadian-based show, I'd love to hear what they have to say. I'd love to present it as an example because I understand what you're talking about here. The only thing I fear, again, me and my suspicious mind, remember what happened to the actual Tea Party in America. It got co-opted and folded right on into some other larger political construct, and this is a frightening prospect. That's the only thing that worries me about the movement that you're talking about. But I would love to hear from one of these guys themselves what it is they intend to do differently. Love to hear what it is.
I can arrange that for you, Charles, next week. I could get Kenny Clements, MP for Kelowna, or Art Lowe. Art Lowe is totally awake and aware. I share conversations just like you and me are sharing right now with him on a regular basis. I could get either one of those individuals to very easily come on a show next week. You let me know, and I'll arrange it for you, buddy. I'd love to have you hear what they have to say.
Well, right,
So,
and if they want to go, if they wanted to go a full 2 hours, I'll give them a different night too. They don't have to come on Tuesday either, because I got Thursdays and Saturdays also. So I know Saturday, Saturday's kind
the only request is, Charles, I join that roundtable. Okay.
no, no, absolutely. I would need you there to help me a little bit because the Canadian situation's different than here. So I'd want somebody to help me stay on track regarding, exactly the particulars regarding Canada and the political structure. I got to confess that I'm not, as well schooled on it as I once thought I was about exactly the way, the mechanisms of government work up there. So I would need you to be part of it. So you let me know, and we'll absolutely do that because I would love to present an example for people to, replicate here. And if this is possible, I'd love to see it done. So please, by all means, yes, I would be more than happy to do that, Barry.
Well,
Please.
just a couple points on it, Charles. Is the party follows the same situations going on in Denmark right now. We are proposing a flat tax system across the board. All loopholes in the tax system are closed. Corporations pay according to what they make. There's platforms in this party that are absolutely revolutionary, but if you look at what they're saying, it makes complete sense. Free healthcare is one of the platforms for the party because on a flat tax system, the corporation money being generated will pay for free healthcare. It's happening in Denmark right now, Charles. All people have to do that are listening right now is Google what's going on in Denmark right now. They implemented these changes, 3-4 years ago? Unbelievable. They've got free healthcare, free education, no debt, and they're doing well. Just look at them as an example. We want to set the same example for Canada, is what this party is all about, guys. So go have a good look at it. You'll find it really interesting.
Well, again, I'd like to see anything that could possibly present itself as an antidote to what's happening here, or at the very least, throw enough of a wrench into the mechanism to slow down and stop this nonsense that's happening in this country regarding these political figures. So I would love to bring one of those guys on and talk about exactly what that means, because again.
You can tell your listeners next week for sure. I'll line up either Art or Kenny Clements to have a talk with you. Both great individuals. One thing I want to put into people's mind too, Charles, is the leader of this party. His name's Tim Moen. You got to look at the fiber of the individual that got involved in this. Anybody that's a fireman is willing to put his life on the line.
No, absolutely. That's a different mentality.
Speaks volumes to me, my friend.
Well, and that's the thing is, a lot of people go after these firefighters and stuff like that, and I don't go for that, because you know what? The bottom line is, this is an individual who's doing a job which is meant to serve his community in a direct fashion, and also he's put his skin in the game, literally. Okay, yeah. So
hats off to him.
Say what you want. Yes.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, say what you want about the nature of policing over the past, few decades or over the past half century or wherever it is you want to take it. But the fact is that firefighters are a unique breed for a reason. And I'm sorry, but I'm not with the whole, going after everybody like that. That's why I do give respect to these guys. And it's not, my post 9/11 trauma-based programming telling me to do so. My whole life I've always thought that somebody that was willing to put themselves in harm's way to serve their neighbors, is somebody that I have to have some respect for. Just like I do respect, the veterans who actually served this country. I feel that it's unfortunate that they were misused by this government, by the corporation, by the corporations, by the intelligence agencies. They were misused and misdirected. But I still hold my respect for what it is that they chose to do when they chose to do it, And that's the thing, and I can't argue with that about a firefighter. That's for sure.
Yeah, it just speaks volumes about his personality and his heart. And to give up his position like this, to get into this, his heart's in it 100%, guys.
Exactly.
And first time in my life, I've always had reserved thoughts about any politician, Charles. But I can honestly say that I have very, very good vibes about everybody that's involved in this party. They're all young. They're all under 35, 40 years old of age, have held incredible positions in society, are intellectual gentlemen, and they're all exactly the same kind of individuals. They're all speaking the same way. They see what's coming, and they want to fight for the future of their children. So take a look at it, guys. And I'll get in touch with Kenny for you, Charles, and I will line up a show next week for you with at least one of them, and they'll jump on the opportunity to join you. So we'll do that after we get off the air here.
Great. I know I have a few listeners in Canada. They're not going to reach their audience so much, but I want to show this as an example and examine it, because, like I said, I think if this is something that is really completely, solid, we can take this and adopt it ourselves. And for once, the alleged United States of America can follow suit with our neighbors up north, instead of our neighbors up north seeming to follow in the terrible footsteps that we seem to keep landing on this planet. But listen, Barry, we're actually down to the last couple of minutes here. Okay. By my count, we got about 4 minutes left, and of course, every time the end of the show, I always do this. I say, look, I do appreciate your time and your effort. I'm not in disagreement with you about very much. Maybe just the degree at which we are alarmed about particular things at the moment, but that is something to be debated and to be discussed, and I think that it's all relevant and it's all valid. So. But the thing is, I consider you one of my friends. You're definitely a brother in the psychological and spiritual sense. So I am more than happy to have you on anytime, and I will be extremely grateful if we can get one of these politicians on who is running for higher office there. Okay, because that would be amazing to show people, maybe how this can be done here. Give them the possibilities at least. So I'll give you the sort of final thoughts if you have anything that you want to get out there in the last couple of minutes, and then I'll close out the show.
Okay, on the bright side, Charles, I was chatting with your people. I'm just going to chat for 1 second here about Chaga. Anybody that wants to get some, you send us some information at PayPal to my link, and we'll give you half price. Anybody on the show here tonight that wants to get some Chaga, I will ship it to you, and we'll charge you half price for your listeners. Okay, because I want people to have this stuff, Charles. It's doing miracles for my body. I'm not plugging it here. We're experiencing miracles in the community with Chaga Mushroom, and I'd love your listeners to have some. So anybody orders, half price tonight.
Oh, that's awesome. And if I wasn't so broke, I'd be ordering it from you myself right now.
I'll send you a bag. Just send me your address, Charles. I'll send you a bag. Done.
You know what? Then I'm going to have to go on my show and talk about what happened when I took this. See, that's what's going to happen. You know that, right?
Okay, well, hey, listen, if I've started something good here, Charles, then I've started something good, okay? And thanks for having me on, brother. It's always a pleasure to talk with you, always.
Absolutely, sir, and a privilege for me to have you on, and maybe one of these days I'll be a guest on your show again.
Yeah, I'd love that, Charles. Anytime, man. Anytime.
We'll see. Of course, Barry is the host of The Big Puzzle, which I forgot to bring up. I did put it out in the graphic when I did the post for the show. But he's the host of The Big Puzzle on Shake and Wake Network, and is also somebody who's affiliated with the Liberty Beacon, a friend of Roger's, friend of mine, and a friend of the planet in my estimation. So I say that I think we've gone through a pretty interesting 2 hours here between Roger and Barry, and I hope that at the very least I provoked some thought in those of you that have decided to tune in, and I do appreciate every last one of you that has either caught this further downstream, say on the YouTube, by download, whatever else. If you're catching it somewhere and you don't know where to find the archives, you can find the archives, the donate button, which anything is appreciated there as well, and the network always gets a piece of whatever I get, but that is my choice. That's not something forced on me, so don't think weird of that one. But the thing is that I do appreciate every single one who decides to even give me the moment in time in their lives to listen to what it is that I'm bringing to you. Thank you very much. And that you can all find that at ucy.tv/TOE, which stands for the Ochelli Effect. There we go. I've talked it all up. I've gotten it all in, and my pepper will kick in shortly. Let's see the clock. In probably a minute and a half, I think, maybe less. So, there it goes, guys. I always seem to do this right at the end, is just kind of chat back and forth and say something odd. But, always think for yourselves, interact with each other. Don't just live the surrogate lifestyle of being engaged only on the internet. Be a person, be yourselves. and think for yourselves. That's the only thing I can actually ask you to do. So, Barry, final word at all?
Monday, 3 p.m., Shake and Wake Radio. I do my show called The Big Puzzle at Pacific Time. I always manage to get somebody really cool and talking, and always get some good conversation. So please tune in. Not doing anything.
Absolutely, and find Barry Prince, that way. Plus you are on Facebook. I don't know if you like people to friend request you, but
yeah, sure. I'm just on Facebook under Barry Prince.
Stars,